I'm speaking today with Wayne Madsen via video Skype link in Washington, D.C. Wayne Madsen is a Washington, D.C. based investigative journalist. He's a frequent contributor on Russia Today, BBC, CNN, and ABC, just to name a few. 20 years of security experience as a naval officer. He's also worked with the Department of State and the NSA, the National Security Agency. Wayne is also a member of the Society for Professional Journalists and the National Press Club. Wayne Madsen, thank you so much for joining us live from D.C.
Hi, good to be with you today.
Good to be with you, too. It's quite clear, Wayne, with Rahm Emanuel as White House Chief of Staff for the last 2 years, that he is not eligible to run for mayor of Chicago. Yet the election board in Chicago approved his stature in the ballot for the upcoming election. We've talked on the phone several times, and we've discussed our theories on what could happen to Chicago with Emanuel as the mayor of Chicago. How dangerous could it be for the second city to have Rahm Emanuel as mayor of Chicago?
Well, remember what happened when you had America's mayor, Rudy Giuliani, a very corrupt mafiosi type in New York. I mean, we had 9/11 happen. Remember that incident occurred on Election Day, and Giuliani actually tried to extend his term as mayor, like he's like Silvio Berlusconi in Italy. He tried to like just violate the city charter in New York and stay on as mayor. I mean, this is unprecedented what some of these people will try to do. So now we look at Chicago. You've got Emanuel will try to take on that mantle, because I think Emanuel's got bigger ambitions beyond mayor of Chicago. I think he's always, since he can't be Speaker of the House, he may be interested in running for President of the United States, just like Giuliani was interested in running for President of the United States. But what we might see in Chicago is Emanuel becoming the new America's mayor. And look, they control, you know, he has access. Look at the brother, the super agent. They have all kinds of ties to the media. They can make that reality happen. All they got to do is snap their fingers. And so you got Rahm Emanuel, no longer this tough, this thuggish guy. You know, he's America's mayor. And I would point out that the old Sears Tower is now owned by Larry Silverstein, who also, of course, had the lease on the World Trade Center. So I don't like what's coming together in this perfect storm in Chicago. I think there's a lot of things that could happen, because you've got the organized crime element with the casinos. You got Emanuel, he's dirty. His ties with Israeli intelligence and the Israeli government and the Likud party. They try to always say, oh, he's a liberal Israel. You know, he's liberal. He doesn't like the Likud. You know, that's a shell game people should ignore. You've got and Silverstein owning the old Sears Tower. You put that all together, I think you got a recipe for another potential 9/11 in Chicago, one that will propel Emanuel to superstar status and possible national political office. That this has no bearing on the case. Well, I think the fact that the President of the United States and the guy that hopes to be the next mayor of Chicago were members of the same gay bathhouse in North Chicago are very relevant to the case against Blagojevich, because, again, this is eliminating somebody who knows way too much to shift the attention off of those who are probably just as corrupt, if not more corrupt, than the accusations against Blagojevich, and that's Obama and Emanuel.
And we'll get to those extracurricular activities in a second. It's also good to point out that the voters of Chicago should know this type of information before voting for a mayor of one of the largest cities in the country, the third largest media market in all the country. The voters need to know this type of information. Now here we go, Wayne. This is the juicy part of what you found during your investigation here this summer in Chicago. Rahm Emanuel and Obama's secret past that they do not want anyone to know about, that they've even had a couple assassinations to some of the members of what you call the Down Low Club. Can you go in length about Obama and Emanuel's past at the grand old man's country on North Clark Street in Chicago?
Well, this goes back to the 2008 presidential campaign when an individual named Larry Sinclair surfaced with some amazing story about a relationship he had with Obama back in 1999. I never thought about it till he saw Obama give the keynote address to the Democratic Convention in Boston in 2004. He recognized him. I paid no attention to it. As a matter of fact, I discounted that rumor in '08 because there was really no proof. And being somebody that has followed dirty tricks in the past, especially those concocted by Karl Rove in the 2000 and 2004 election campaigns, I knew that, you know, these people are out there with dirty tricks. They'll try anything. So I discounted it. But when I went to Chicago, I started talking to people about Obama's past, this past that no one knows about, and also that of Emanuel, this man's country. This bathhouse is mentioned. Also, the Trinity United Church of Christ, where Obama was a member, the fact that that was being run as sort of a gay, married, a black male dating service for weekend retreats. This all came out. And then we had the choir director, Donald Young, brutally murdered in December of '07, gangland hit style, and another individual named Larry Bland, also a member of that church, also being murdered. There was a lot of information that Donald Young was somehow hooked up with Obama, and they were just eliminating potential witnesses to Obama's gay lifestyle.
Now, you mentioned that both Emanuel and Obama in your article dated back in May 24th, that they were lifetime members of Man's Country. Can you describe what Man's Country actually is and why it's revered as one of the high upscale bathhouses in Chicago?
Well, apparently it's a real seedy place. It's been around 30 years, but even though it's seedy, it's still a place where people who have certain predilections like to go because they know what they're getting. Apparently, Obama, and lifetime membership is really paying, I guess, $10. It gives you a lifetime membership. But it's in the case of Obama, apparently his interest is older white guys, and he likes to be the receiver of attention. There was no information that Obama and Emanuel were ever connected to each other. That even they may not have even been members of this bathhouse at the very same time period. But nevertheless, this is the type of place that caters to these types of people. It wasn't the only place. Later, I found out that Obama had also frequented parties at a place called the Purple Hotel in Lincolnwood, which was known as a hangout where they had these parties, afternoon parties, where there was drug use and a lot of basically homosexual orgies taking place. So it wasn't just the bathhouse. There were other places mentioned, and this came from people in the gay community in Chicago, people who would know. They don't have any axe to grind except for the fact they probably think that Obama and Emanuel are big phonies with their families, and how they always talk about their families and all this type of thing. That they're total hypocrites.
And you can see that tough guy persona being brought forth by Emanuel, maybe mentally to try to forget about his secretive past in the bathhouse. You report in your article that Emanuel joined Man's Country after he left the Clinton White House when he moved back to Chicago in 1998, and then again in his 2002 campaign.
Yeah, this past week, Rosa DeLauro, who provided Rahm Emanuel with the townhouse he lived in while he was a member of Congress. This is back when the family was in Chicago. Now, when he became chief of staff, he he had a regular residence here with his family in Washington, but during this time frame when he was a member of Congress, he lived in this townhouse, and apparently during this time frame, this townhouse was wired with audio and video, and may have been used to tape secretly some of the cavortings in the townhouse, which I was told by very good sources included not only Emanuel's use of the townhouse for these activities, but also Senator Barack Obama's use of the townhouse for these activities. This past week, Rosa DeLauro's longtime chief of staff, a woman named Ashley Turton, who's married to President Obama's chief of liaison to the House of Representatives, Dan Turton, went out to her car 5 o'clock in the morning in her garage in her townhouse on Capitol Hill, turned on the ignition, and the car caught fire somehow. Now the police are saying it hit something and caught fire, but she was burned up in the car. She died. So we're being told by the Washington police that this was a freaky accident. I don't believe in freaky accidents in this town when it has to do with somebody who was a chief of staff to DeLauro, who was providing Emanuel with this house, this townhouse where he lived, and somebody who's that close to the White House. I don't believe in freaky accidents. They don't happen usually. This was a scene right out of one of these Hollywood political thrillers. So I think, was this an attempt to clean things up for Emanuel so there's no problems? Well, we don't know yet, but we definitely have a suspicious death here in Washington. Somebody who may have known about Emanuel and what he was doing in this townhouse the time he was a member of Congress here.
And Wayne, you've had multiple sources reading your articles throughout the summer confirming what you just mentioned about Emanuel and Obama's secretive past, including members of the Democratic Party and the Congressional Black Congress, correct?
Yeah, I've talked to people in the Congressional Black Caucus when they first encountered Senator Obama. He was the only senator who was a member of the Black Caucus. They noted, some things about him that just weren't, they thought were odd, like the clear nail polish that he was wearing. When I asked one black member of the caucus, well, I've been told that could be a metrosexual thing, and this member said, where I come from, that ain't metrosexual, that's homosexual. So the members of the Black Caucus were well alerted to this fact that what you see with Obama on television isn't really the real Obama. And you look at the guy's past, and of course there are so many question marks. And I'm not one of these birth certificate people. I think he was born in Hawaii. I think the White House loves that because it's a diversion. It sends people off on a tangent, when in fact the real issue is his passport record. Who did he really work for when he was supposed to be at Occidental and Columbia? What was all the foreign travel really about? And who did the family, mom, grandfather, grandmom, stepdad, who did they really work for back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s?
Wayne, you also had in your July 19th article that the White House went into damage control once you released this story, and also the Globe newspaper picked up on your report in your investigation. Can you describe what the White House was actually doing to try to silence the information being brought forth about Rahm Emanuel and President Obama?
Well, they did. It's what the White House will do with any administration. They don't like anything negative, especially something of this nature. I mean, it happened back in the Bush administration too, when I found out that Cheney had dealings with the late D.C. Madam back when he was the head of Halliburton. They try to put these fires out. They'll say, "Oh, it's vicious conspiracy theory." They would rather than be ignored, but they will try to put these fires out, make it sound like these are just vicious rumors without any basis of fact, and this is what they normally do. It's not unusual. You would almost expect it from any White House.
Again, we're here with Wayne Madsen, Wayne Madsen Report. CHENEY'S.com. Wayne, with this being said of the shady past between Rahm Emanuel, mayor candidate of Chicago, and President Barack Obama, these two candidates, how perfect are they in terms of being blackmailed? Are they the perfect blackmailed candidates?
I think so. I mean, but I mean, when we think in terms of blackmail, we think maybe some foreign intelligence agency might be the blackmail agent. But I think in this case, it's our own government has the goods on them to keep them in line, to make sure they do exactly what they're expected to do. I think this is primarily the case with Obama, although with Rahm Emanuel, I think it's quite clear he may have ties to the Israeli intelligence service, Mossad. Whether they would put him in a blackmail position or not is, I think, you know, we just don't know. He may just be very loyal to working for them. I mean, as a veteran of the Israel Defense Force, he obviously has had past connections with them.
Wayne, final thoughts with you. Anything that we've missed in this investigation on Rahm Emanuel and the Chicago Democratic machine, and anything else you would like to cover on Rahm Emanuel?
Again, I would go back to look at some of his earlier campaigns for Congress in the 5th District. I spoke to many people who ran against him, Democrats and Republicans and independents, and it was quite clear that this guy is a dirty operator. He will be as dirty a mayor of Chicago as you've ever seen with anybody in the past, and that includes the dailies, because of this involvement he has with casinos, foreign intelligence operatives, and some of this seamier side of Chicago politics, including his association with the real estate developers, the same people that try to get the Olympics. Because let's remember, as chief of staff, Emanuel gave the final green light for Obama to go to Copenhagen and try to get the Olympics. So he also, Emanuel, thought he could make money on that, and so that money taints him, as well as Valerie Jarrett, the late school board president, and the other individuals who were part of that, including Michelle Obama, I should add.
Wayne, you mentioned that you wanted to challenge Chicago Sun-Times, Chicago Tribune, and the Daily Herald to try to pick up your story and see if they can do some investigation. Yet, from your report in the summer, none of those papers have really done anything. None of the TV networks in Chicago, ABC7, NBC5, CBS2, WGN, none of them have really picked up this story or have done any investigation on Rahm Emanuel. How important is it for you and for the voters of Chicago to become aware of Rahm Emanuel and prevent catastrophe from happening in the second city?
It's really important, and I hate to say it, but the grand old days of Chicago newspapers, the Tribune and the Sun-Times, when the reporters used to hang out at the Billy Goat Tavern downtown Chicago, I think are over with. This has a lot to do with what's happening in the newspapers across the country, but the fact is that Sam Zell owns took over the Tribune and basically emaciated it. The Sun-Times was emaciated by Hollinger and Conrad Black when he owned it. They've never recovered. There is no independent. The days of Mike Royko and these others are over with. And I only see the internet, some of the blogs, picking up the slack to do that, but there's a resource issue. It's not cheap to go after some of this corruption, but I would hope that people in Chicago try to get as much information as they can from the internet on these connections with Emanuel and the Obama group, Axelrod, who used to work for the Chicago Tribune and still has some connections there, but the days of a vibrant Chicago press to go after this corruption are unfortunately over with in a thing of the past.
Wayne, fire out your website for those who are interested in what you do and would like to read some of your articles.
Yes, it's WayneMatsonReport.com, and I started it because we also here in Washington have lost the muckraking spirit of Jack Anderson and Drew Pearson, the Washington merry-go-round, even people before their time, going back to H.L. Mencken and the work he did in Baltimore, which covered Washington too, Washington politics. But this has long since kind of disappeared. We don't have any muckraking spirit. So I tried, when I started this website in 2005, to bring back the spirit of the Washington merry-go-round, which basically helped bring down people from Joseph McCarthy to Richard Nixon and Watergate and Iran-Contra in the 1980s. It helped expose a lot of these things. But as long as these politicians and these criminals think they can get away with this stuff, because there's no active independent press, they will do it. And that's why the founders of this country decided it was important to put in the First Amendment freedom of the press, because in those days the press was actually not major newspapers. The press was much like websites and blogs today. They were pamphlets, and people talk, well, the stuff isn't sourced today. Well, it wasn't sourced then, but the founders thought it was important enough to protect that, even though it wasn't sourced. And a lot of those pamphlets were scurrilous in nature. They thought it was important to protect it, and I think that's what we need to try to do while we still have the internet. And believe me, there's work being done by Obama's guy Cass Sunstein to try to end the internet, and his other friend Genachowski, the head of the FCC. When they get together and conspire, we may not see the internet the way we see it today.
By the way, Cass Sunstein has Chicago connections from the University of Chicago, so
yeah.
That Chicago merry-go-round working well out in D.C. Wayne Matson, thank you so much for joining us live in Washington, D.C. God bless, and stay safe out in D.C. with your reporting.
Okay, thank you.
That's Wayne Matson of WayneMatsonReport.com. I'm Julio Rauseo. Thank you so much for joining us on this Reality Report special investigation on Rahm Emanuel. It's up to you to get this news out and prevent what could be the new mafia boss of Chicago. I'm Julio Rauseo saying peace, love, and God bless. And don't forget to stick around for more of the Reality Report on RTR.org. So long.
I wanted to alert you to a serious situation, I think. I know it's a little bit off subject, but, you know, the same group that bought the World Trade Center complex 2 months before 9/11
has bought the Sears Tower, Larry Silverstein, and now they're trying to put their man, Rahm Emanuel, in Chicago.
Oh, okay. See, you're fully aware of it. Good. I'm glad you connected the dots to that.
Yeah, we covered it when he bought it 3 years ago.
Yeah, they announced they're going to paint it silver, too, which is, of course, how nano-explosives technology is applied. So they could easily stage another attack there and then blame it on the Iranians or whoever they want to.
You know, my mom, we took the kids, you know, on a trip this weekend, and she talked about in her gut, she thinks they're going to probably blow up the no longer the Sears Tower. Just when you put all the pieces together, I think you're on to something. Speaking of Rahm Emanuel, I'm glad you brought that up. Hold on, let me find it. Hold on just a second. Rahm Emanuel is famous for sending dead fish to people. That's a Sicilian message, even though he's not Sicilian, of you will sleep with the fishes. He's famous, of course, in front of the press, stabbing the table with a knife when he reads the names of political enemies and saying, dead, dead, dead. Our office, sent to our address, was sent by the Rahm Emanuel for mayor campaign. You know, we've been very critical of his mafia connections as of late, been focusing on that. My office was sent a letter from Rahm Emanuel thanking us for his support, for our support, and giving us a Rahm for mayor bumper sticker from Chicago. And I wonder if this is a joke by somebody in his office or if it's something more. Is this a little Chicagoland message? What do you think, Don?
I have no idea. He's a very strange character. His father was an Erdogan terrorist, though. And he's a very mean person. You know, everybody knows that. Yeah,
we've been covering that air gun situation for 3 years, and just had Wayne Matson on about it just a few days ago on Friday covering it. But absolutely, here's the Rahm Emanuel letter to me. thanking me for my support. Never supported him. Maybe somebody made a contribution or something as a joke in my name. I don't know why I got this. I hope it's not a veiled threat, but he's the type of guy that does it. Rahm for mayor, and I've got this right here. I really appreciate your call. So there it is, ladies and gentlemen. Wonder what that means.
Justice, it's not about agenda, it's not about mobilizing people, it's about dialing for corporate dollars. These two parties have sold the U.S. government and the American people to the highest bidders.